الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهد الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا عبده ورسوله قال الله تبارك وتعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد وبارك وسلم. It's important that when we experience a success, that we analyze it afterward so that we can repeat and ensure success moving forward as well. Now, we're often taught, since being a young child, that we should learn from our mistakes and we should learn from our failures. And this is kind of a common notion. I mean, a lot of the corporate world focuses on this as well, with the idea being that it's important to not make the same mistake again. If you have a failure, use it as an opportunity to be able to rebound and be able to succeed again. But I would argue that it isn't just that we take lessons from our failures so that we can get back up again and then aim to succeed, but rather we should try to learn from our successes. Because if we analyze the things that led up to a particular success, then moving forward we can try to maintain these things so that we can be successful in the future. Let me give you a couple of examples. If I, for instance, have a job interview, and it's something that's really important to me, and after the fact I realize that, wow, this went really well. Whether I get the job or not, this interview went very well. It's important, it's incumbent upon me to then look back and say, what were the things that led to this successful interview? Was it the time that I went to bed the night before? Was it the meal that I ate? Was it the ability for me to control the stress or anxiety I was experiencing? Was it something else that I had done? Was it the day of the week that I scheduled the interview? Because these things all contributed to the success of that interview, and if I want to have another successful meeting again, then I should just mimic and model what I had done previously. Similarly, and this is maybe a silly example, but this also applies to family vacations as well, because these are often, not prone to success. There's always inevitably challenges that come along the way. If I have a good at the end of the vacation, I realized wow, that went really well. The kids, my spouse, everyone was really just on board and engaged, and we really felt like this was a successful vacation after the fact. Well, I should look back and say, what were the things that led up to this being so great? What was it? Was it the hotel that I had chosen and how far it was from, the places we were going to visit? Was it the flight that I had taken? What was it exactly that led up to it that made this as comfortable as it was? Was it because I used a travel agent? So that in the future, if I want to have another successful family vacation, all I have to do is look back at the blueprint that I had used in the past for a successful vacation, and then I can maintain that moving forward. And you can apply this, and I can apply this to so many other principles in life, that if I want to succeed, I shouldn't just try to learn from my failures, but I should actually try to take a lesson from my successes. Now, when it comes to myself and my relationship with my Lord and my relationship with Allah, I think we can all come to some agreement that the last few days of Ramadan, that's the time when I feel the most connected to my deen and to my Lord. That's the time where I really feel engaged. I feel this sense of devotion, this sense of commitment, this desire to strive and do more for the sake of Allah, that I don't experience the other 11 and a half months of the year. Meaning, we all feel this sense of success, especially as Ramadan comes to a close, right? And at times, it goes through our own mind, especially in the last day, the last 2 days, we begin to think, man, if only I could continue to be this type of Muslim moving forward. If only I could be this successful now, the rest of the year as well, how different my life would be. How amazing my life would be. It's interesting because no one else understands this except those of us, all of us from the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ that experienced Ramadan. It's funny because, at work, when my colleagues ask, oh, so when is Eid? And I'll tell them that, oh, it's in 4 or 5 days. Almost unanimously, everyone's response to that is, oh, I'm sure you can't wait for that to happen. Because now you get to eat again, now you get back to your regular sleep schedule, now you get back into those things that, the indulgences that we're so accustomed to. And in my mind, when I hear that, I begin to think, I'm not so sure about that. Yeah, Eid is a celebration, and yes, there is a degree of difficulty associated with having to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and trying to eat, and then not being able to consume food or drink or have relations for the entire day, and then at night having to come and then trying to pray for extended hours in the masjid. Everyone's schedule is completely flipped upside down. There is a degree of difficulty that goes with it. But the happiness and contentment and the pleasure that comes from it, no one else knows it except for us because we've done it and we've experienced it. If they knew what I was experiencing, the internal state of peace that I experienced in the last few days of Ramadan, they would pay $1 million to be able to take that away from me. We all have a very similar experience. It's because we succeeded. We all, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, we've all completed the month of Ramadan, hopefully, successfully. So now it's incumbent upon us to look back and say that if I want to maintain this connection to Allah and to my deen and really be the Muslim that I want to be, what is it that led up to this success at the end of Ramadan? What is it that's caused me to become so devoted, so connected, so committed, so intentional, and so purposeful with my every step and every moment and every thought? What is it that I can do, that I can learn from this success of Ramadan so that I can then carry it forward with me for the rest of the year? Many of us, the last couple of days of Ramadan, there's like this sadness that comes upon us. Sometimes even the last hour or two, where it's like, man, I really miss this. I finally got to show my Allah what I can truly be. I finally got to connect with my Creator in a way that I've always wanted to. And now this is just going to leave me. And I'm just going to go back to my normal self. I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be sad on the inside. I'm not emotionally sad, but I'm talking about a deeper state of sadness that's plaguing humanity at large. But it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. If we look back at our own Ramadan and decide what were the components of Ramadan that made me so successful so that I can reach this place in this state, and it doesn't have to wither away after the month leaves, then I can succeed the rest of the year as well. And I'm going to mention 2 components of Ramadan that really allowed us to be so successful. 2 components that really allowed us to be so successful. The first thing about Ramadan that's so special is that it recalibrated and it allowed us to rebalance our soul and our body. It forced us to recalibrate or again, put in balance our soul and our physical body. What do I mean by that? Look, the reality is that most of us, all of us, really, the entire world at this point has decided to feed our bodies to such a degree that we've elevated it, right? We eat what we want whenever we want. We think about what we want. We look at whatever we want to look at. We spend, hours and hours and hours streaming. We completely indulge in all of those things that nourish our body. If I want it, I get it. I need something, I'm going to get it within 5 minutes. I need something, I'm going to get it same day delivery. If I want to watch something, no one's going to control what can go in my eyes, and no one's going to control what's going to go into my ears. I get to do whatever I want. We've essentially fed the body, and so the body elevates. And for the most part, we've neglected our soul. And the soul is not nourished by those things that the body is nourished with. The soul is nourished not by food, not by drink, not by relations, not by any of these things. The soul is nourished by those things that are heavenly, meaning those things that come from Allah and are angelic, like the Quran, and like coming to the masjid, and like keeping the company of one another. These are the things that elevate the soul. So while we spend 11 months of the year feeding the body and neglecting the soul, there's this imbalance that's created. And where there's this imbalance, the vast majority of people experience an internal state of disturbance and sadness that can only be combated by recalibrating that. Now look at the formula of Ramadan. It's so beautiful. I mean, this is, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's master plan He's the one who created our bodies and our soul, so he obviously knows what's best for us. Look at the system and design that he set up. During the month of Ramadan, we're basically instructed to suppress our body, and then we're instructed to elevate our soul. How so? In the month of Ramadan, those things that are otherwise completely permissible, we're now told you can't indulge in these things. So now I can't eat, which feeds the body. I can't drink, feeds the body. I can't, have intimate relations, even in a lawful way, suppressing the body. And then on top of that, we're encouraged more so in the month of Ramadan to protect our tongues, not lie, to protect our eyes, not look at things inappropriately, protect our ears, and not just, constantly take in anything that comes our way or anything that we put on our phone. We're advised to do this. So we're suppressing the body. And then in the month of Ramadan, we're encouraged to elevate the soul. We're encouraged to recite more Quran. We're encouraged to come in the evening and pray an extra 20 rak'ah of prayer. We're encouraged to give more in charity. These things are all elevating our soul. So what's essentially happening is Ramadan is this master formula Allah's designed for us that says, in order for you to succeed, i.e. attain taqwa, attain an inner state of peace that's long-lasting and not just for this month alone, there has to be some component of suppressing the body, and there has to be a component of elevating the soul. This has to be balanced out again. This has to be balanced out again. The effect of someone really feeding their soul and to some degree suppressing the body is what you and I all experienced in the last few days of Ramadan. Which is that although it was difficult, and yes, although we may have missed sleeping again, we definitely missed those last few days of Ramadan. And we definitely wonder and are worried about what's going to happen to us for the rest of the year. So that means for us, moving forward for the rest of the year, I should be mindful of these things. I can't assume that I can take in whatever I want. I can eat as much as I want and overeat. I can sleep as much as I want and oversleep. And I can look at whatever I want to look at. And I can listen to whatever I want to listen to, and that it's not going to have consequences on my inner state. It absolutely will. It'll have consequences socially, emotionally, psychologically, and of course spiritually. And I can't think that I can neglect my soul for 11 months of the year and think that I'm going to be able to still achieve some inner state of happiness and contentment with my Lord or with my life in general. It's not possible. Ramadan teaches us this. It teaches us that we have to have some semblance of a balance. We can't neglect our souls, and we cannot overindulge our bodies. And if I choose to do it that way, I'm going to be disturbed on the inside. But on the other hand, if I, to some degree, control what I consume through my eyes, through my ears, through essentially everything that otherwise nourishes the body, and I instead give some attention to the soul, that same degree of contentment and devotion to Allah that I experienced in the last few days of Ramadan, I can maintain in the future as well. The second component of Ramadan that I'm going to highlight that has allowed us to succeed, right? Has allowed us to succeed is we did Ramadan together. We did Ramadan together. And that's what's beautiful. Look, if I was to tell you, I was to tell Zaid, that Zaid, look, month of Ramadan is over, you get a 2-week break, and now you're going to have to fast for another 30 days. And you're going to have to pray Taraweeh prayer every evening, and you're going to do this all alone. It's going to be very difficult for Zaid to have to do that. The reason that we're able to do so much in the month of Ramadan is because we collectively are doing it together. The entire ummah of the Prophet ﷺ is participating in this together. One point, if I know, it's funny because it's the same thing. You talk to people who don't fast or who are not Muslim at work or at school or anywhere, and they say, how in the world do you do it? How is it possible that you don't eat or drink from 5 o'clock in the morning until 8:30 at night? There's no way I could do it. That's almost always what they say. There's no way I could do it. And I tell them, no. The reason that I can do it, one, it's doable, but the reason I can do it is because I have so many other people that are doing it with me. If I was left to myself to have to give up food and drink for 30 days, and have to try to get up and pray for 30 days, and have to disrupt my sleep schedule for 30 days, and have to do all of these additional things and remove these extra things from my life for 30 days alone, it'd be very difficult for me to do. It's near impossible. But if I do it along with everyone else around me, it becomes possible. This is why in the Quran, this is one of the, in the Quran when Allah Ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, and He huddles in the believers. And He says, those of you who believe, kutiba alaykumus siyam, that fasting has been prescribed upon all of you. The entire community has to participate in this. And then He says, kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum. Allah Ta'ala says, the way that fasting was prescribed to the people before you as well. Meaning that this is not just for you. Anyone else has wanted to achieve success in the past, they also had to do the same thing. Meaning that although you might feel alone at times, when it comes to the month of Ramadan and the spirit of fasting, this is not a tradition of the Prophet ﷺ's ummah. This is a tradition that predates it, going back across millennia. Going back across millennia. So now when I'm participating in Ramadan, not only am I doing it with the community around me and the over 1 billion Muslims around the world that are doing it, but I'm also tying myself into generations and generations of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had connected to Him in the past. So what happens is that now I realize that if I want to do something that is otherwise impossible, tell me to fast the next 30 days by myself, impossible. But tell me that I have to fast the next 30 days along with everyone else in my family and my community and the rest of the Muslims in this country and the world, I'm ready to do it. So the lesson that I take from this, as I'm reflecting back on my Ramadan, and I've realized that, wow, I've really achieved some degree of success. And of course, we hope and pray Allah's completely forgiven us. And of course, we are still dependent fully on Allah's mercy. I'm not saying, that we are not dependent on this. But to some degree, I've achieved a degree of success, and I know this because of the way I feel when it comes to my salah now, and my Quran, and my commitment. So now I know that moving forward also, if I want to succeed, and I want to excel when it comes to my relationship with Allah, then I have to tie myself into others as well. I can't do this alone. If I want to become consistent in connecting with the Quran, or consistent in coming to the Masjid, or consistent in some other act of worship, or some other righteous act altogether, be it charity or be it community service, if I tie myself in with others, then those things that are otherwise impossible for me to be able to achieve spiritually or religiously, those now become possible. The unlikely now becomes likely, and Ramadan was the proof for all of us. Tell someone tell anyone who doesn't understand what we do in Ramadan, the hours we pray, the sacrifices we make, the disruption of our sleep schedules, the fact that we all still go to work, the fact that we still have to live our normal lives, they'd say, you can't do this, it's impossible. It's not possible, except it is possible because I'm tied into a community. And when I'm tied into a community, the impossible becomes possible. The impossible becomes possible. So the summary for today is that it's important that we not just take lessons from our failures, but we additionally take lessons from our successes. And all of us in the last few days of Ramadan really felt a degree of success that we haven't felt elsewhere. And that success was manifested by this internal state of devotion and connection with Allah, that we finally felt like true Muslims or true servants of Allah who were truly trying to please Him. And the reason why it was so effective is because Ramadan taught us that in order for us to succeed, I have to be mindful of how much I indulge my physical body and how much I contribute to the nourishment spiritually of my soul. And I have to have some degree of balance. It can't be out of order, or it can't be imbalanced. And the second is, if I really want to succeed moving forward for the next 11 months of the year, I have to do it with my community. And at a basal level, that means I have to have an established connection with my local masjid. Essential. And number two, beyond that, I have to plug myself into something else. If I want, for instance, to become connected to the Quran, I have to spend time with the people of Quran. If I want to become connected with the circles of knowledge, I have to plug myself in. I can't just do it alone. I'm fully dependent. Myself, all of you, the entire Ummah of the Prophet, we're dependent on one another. So we should find people that impress us, that encourage us to succeed. We should attach ourselves to these groups of people. And we should say that, look, I'm fully dependent on you, you're fully dependent on me. This is the reason that I was able to succeed in Ramadan, and I want to maintain this. I want to maintain this moving forward as well. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to take lessons from the fruits that we've taken from this blessed month. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to achieve complete acceptance as a result of the efforts that we had put in and as an effect of His mercy. We ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us to sustain and maintain ourselves over the rest of the year so that we can continue to remain connected to Him, devoted to Him, and continue to maintain this semblance of belief and connection that's essential to our success. Subhanallah bihamdihi subhanallah al-azim. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum wa li sa'iril muslimina fastaghfiruhu innahu huwal ghafurur rahim.